Inspire.
From Spire, this is Starting Now, a show about change, resilience, and your next big idea. I'm Jeff Sarris. Today's guest is Rafal Tomal. Rafal runs his own solo design studio where he works with clients like Microsoft, Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income, James Clear, and many others. I really think you're going to love this episode, especially if you run or plan to start your own service-based business. Anyway, without further ado, let's get started. So hey, Rafal, thanks so much for being on the show.
Hey, Jeff. Thank you for having me.
And so you've been here in the US for 10, 15 years or so, right?
Yeah, it's 13 years right now.
Okay, 13 years now. So then why did you first decide to leave Poland and come to the US? We're going to start at the very beginning.
Yeah, okay. So I moved to the USA from Poland right after I graduated high school. And I didn't have plans to go to college, to continue my education. And I had some friends who went that route, and they told me, they've been some of them were great programmers, great designers, and they started all those programs in colleges and universities, and they spent 2-3 years learning, and they said it was like too slow for them. Everything was moving, much faster out there. So there was no sense like in our industry to really go into this formal education path. So I thought I don't want to go to college. I need to start working. And I was a self-taught PHP programmer. And I thought that there is some opportunity out there. And even in high school, I really started working as a freelancer. I started working with some companies so I could start making money. I was probably making more money than my teachers who told me I have to go to college and have that education, or, there will be nothing I can do in my life. So I knew there's something about this. And then this opportunity came out that I can move to the United States. I can have a green card, and, what's better place to start a career as a designer developer than, being in the United States. So that's how I decided to come here.
And was that a specific opportunity, or is it just the green card system, or did something actually pop up?
Well, I got a green card through my family, from my dad. So that was, nothing specific. I didn't because I didn't get it because I was a great programmer or something. So that was just because of the family. And, I took that opportunity. I came here. I worked many different jobs, trying to get through. And when I came here, everyone told me we both live in Chicago area, and we know there's a big Polish community here. So when I came here, everyone told me Polish people can work on a construction or in a factory. There's, no other chance. Colleges are too expensive. You can afford it. So there's no chance you can get any better job than that if you don't have a degree, if you don't have, connections within these American communities. So that was a little depressing. And I thought okay, I'm going to make some money working for my dad's company and laying out hardwood floors and helping move the furniture. I did everything I could to just make some money, earn enough money to buy a ticket back and go to Poland, because that's where I can at least work and do what I wanted to do. And somehow I stumbled upon a job offer in a Polish newspaper. They were looking for a PHP programmer. And, not too many people know that, but I was a PHP programmer before I became a designer. Uh-huh. And so I applied for that job. They sent me a test for a PHP developer. I filled this test. I think I passed because they told me that was a Friday night, and they told me I can come and start my work on Monday.
Oh, wow.
And they told me later that there was a few people who graduated master degrees and didn't pass this test. So I was okay, so maybe I am a good PHP programmer then. Mm-hmm. But so I started working for this local web design company. And my job there was to take design projects, and that company hired some freelance designers. So I took the design projects in Photoshop. I slice them. Back in the day, like what we did with slicing
Oh
Photoshop
yeah.
projects, and then put them together into the custom CMS. That was my job. And those design projects, I looked into them and they were so terrible. Like they look nice outside, but I look into the, when you are a coder and when you look into this, you're looking for patterns in design. And I was looking like, oh, this color here is different than this color, and this font size is different. It's like there was a mess. There was like, and I realized that those designers have no idea how we code websites at all. Like this is not how it works. So I told my boss that maybe I will give it a try and design our next project in Photoshop, because that's apparently what people do. They design projects in Photoshop. So I can maybe design in Photoshop, and then I will slice it and create a complete website, because that would be even easier for me than trying to slice and work with those messy designs. And so they said, yeah, okay, go ahead. And so he gave me a chance. And when they saw my first design, they said I'm not longer a developer. Now I'm a designer in the company. So after that, that felt good, because, I thought I was a crappy developer anyway, and I immediately fell in love in design. So that was so good for me.
Yeah, was that so you were doing PHP development when you said you were in high school. Were you designing then too, or is this sort of your first foray into design?
Well, when I was in high school, I was kind of playing with design. But programming and coding was like my main thing. Like before even high school, I think I started when I was like 12 years old. I went into C++, all those hardcore development stuff, and I was
At
spending
12 years old, to be doing C and C++ is crazy.
but that was fascinating to me, and I was spending time in this it wasn't even anything like visual graphical. It was in this console that was like a text, but everything was text based. So you had to type in a command, then you get a response. And so I started creating. I was very fascinated in creating games. So I wanted to get into developing games. But my first games were like those text based games where everything was descriptive, and you had to type in your commands like walk here, walk there, and there was that kind of stuff. That was fun. And then I started looking more into OpenGL. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's like a graphical library that you can do with C++. So I started doing some of that, and I was also very interested in physics and math. So like this was like perfect world to me. Like now I can connect everything, like development, math, physics, and create something physical, like real, still in virtual world, but it was more real than this, text-based games in a console. So that was fascinating. But so I feel like I had this, urge to go more into those more visual stuff, and I spent more time like even trying to develop those games. Like none of those games were like fully developed, like something that you could play, but I feel like I spent more time trying to make them look nice, and I was playing with colors. I was playing with some of those gradients and creating shadows. And this OpenGL library allowed you to do all that stuff. So that was fascinating. But then when internet and web was introduced, and I was living in Poland, so that was probably like we're a few years behind the United States with everything. But then I saw that I can create a website, and using CSS and HTML, I can actually like use those colors. I can design in the browser. That's how I was designing. Like I was coding something in PHP, designing right in the browser using CSS, HTML, doing those fancy corners using tables, like all that crazy stuff we had to do. But that was, they were looking fine, I feel. I think, so that's how it started. But yeah, Photoshop came way later when I already had my first job.
Yeah. So so most people would recognize you because of your work with Copyblogger, with StudioPress, all of like you've been very prolific in this space. How did you transition from this first job, this first opportunity at design, into working with Brian, both the Brians and everything there?
Yeah, so in when I had this first job, I quit that job after 2 years. And that was pretty scary, by the way, because when I got this job, I was like 19. I was living on my own in Chicago. But I also had this urge to like have my own business, to, try work with my own clients, all that stuff. So I quit that job after 2 years. I started my own full-time freelance business, and I got some first clients. I was doing pretty well. I was posting my designs everywhere, all the CSS galleries, wherever I could post it. I was trying to hustle a little bit to get through. And then
Actually,
Brian Gardner.
before we go too much further, how did you get those first clients?
How did I get my first clients? Yeah, that's so my first clients were usually from the Polish community, like my friends who were contractors, who were plumbers, So I started working with some of them, and then they started recommending me further to their friends. And I knew that, this niche is not very profitable, but I found my way. Like, I wasn't doing like, crazy advanced websites. Like, I created a few templates, and I was trying to like recreate those websites, so I still had a good profit margin from those websites. And, most of them were looking the same. I just changed the colors, changed the logo, and all of them had the same functionality. So, I even thought like, well, I could start a business like this and do, very simple and quick websites for those clients, because they don't need custom designs. They don't need advanced stuff like most of the companies offer. But that was also not, like very interesting in the long term. Like, I wanted to go more into custom design, work with bigger companies and all that. So I started working with those, all those local small business owners, and somehow they started referring me to their friends, and then to their friends. And there was a client. Then I think the biggest moment for me was one of my friend's clients. He hired him for like construction work, and he saw his website. But this client had a much bigger business, and that was I can't even remember what it was, but they hired me. Oh, that was like a that was installing Windows or something. But that was like, much bigger company here in the Chicago area. So they hired me to redesign the whole website for them. So when I redesigned that website, and then, that's, when a lot more people could see me, and then, like much bigger companies saw that, I'm capable of designing big websites like that. So, I feel like there is, all you have to do is like show your designs and show your work everywhere, not to be too humble. Because when I talked to some designers back then, and they were like, oh, I designed this website, but, I'm not very proud of it. So I'm waiting for the next project so I can design it better, and then I will show it my portfolio. But it doesn't work this way. Like, most clients, they don't even see a difference between good design and a little bit better design. Like, they can't say that difference. So, if you design something, you just have to show it everywhere. So once I started posting all of those designs on CSS galleries, every day, and all of those places, then how I met Brian Gardner, because he found one of my designs on one of those CSS galleries. So he contacted me, we met, I started working for Studio Press, and which later transitioned into my job in Copyblogger Media.
Yeah, and I mean, Studio Press at the time was still pretty early. For anyone who doesn't know, Studio Press is the creators of Genesis. So the first episode of this podcast actually talked to Brian Gardner from Studio Press, and they're the creators of the Genesis theme for WordPress, and ended up, merging with Copyblogger and becoming this big education / services platform that's really, really grew immensely. When you joined Studio Press, though, how early was that in that journey? Because I know it was before Copyblogger.
Yeah, so when I was working for Studio Press, I wasn't like employee. I was just a contractor. So I was working on some of the projects. I designed some themes that Brian sold through Studio Press. So that was this kind of relationship. But once they started Copyblogger Media, and then they invited me to join as their lead designer. And I was 21 or 22 back then. And that was a shock to me, because till this day, I was working on mostly on those small business companies. and I just had started getting a few bigger clients. And now I'm suddenly working, on those multi-million-dollar websites and the biggest blogs in the world, and people like Brian Clark, Danny Rose, Chris
Hmm.
Brogan, Chris Tucker, and so that was pretty big difference.
Yeah. Was there any, how did it feel making that transition? So, was there any pushback from from being solo to being part of a company?
Yeah, there was. So in the beginning, I didn't want to join another company. I had this feeling, maybe like my experience with the previous company. There was nothing wrong with the previous company. It was just my own perception and my experience that I had a feeling that I'm not good in working in that environment when I have a boss over me. I need to do this certain amount of tasks. I don't have a full control over my schedule. I don't have that freedom and everything. With Copy Blogger Media was very easy because I could still work from home. I had all the freedom I needed. Nobody was looking at my time. Nobody was looking when I'm working, when I'm not working. So it was like that. This transition was much easier, much smoother than I thought. So didn't nothing really change that much because even before I joined, most of my projects I was doing was for Brian and Studio Press. So I was still doing the same
Hmm.
projects. I was just now a part of a company. I had all the benefits of being employee. So that was like a hybrid of both of the worlds. That was very nice.
Yeah, definitely. So, now you're past, like, Copy Blogger and everything has changed and parts of that company were sold. So now you're on your next journey, say. So you're no longer part of that company. Tell me about that transition from going. So now you're going back to being a solo entrepreneur, but
Mhm.
also, how long were you at Copy Blogger
So I was
Studio
working for
Press?
Copylogger for almost 8 years.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So then, how would you say you use that time to then move on to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so I was treating my work at Copyblogger almost like my college time. Like that's like my education. So I was trying to be like a sponge and like absorb all the information, all the knowledge I could, and working with people like Brian Clark side by side, where you know we work. I work personally with him on all of those landing pages, sales pages. I could see his process, his way of thinking, how he writes copy for those landing pages, how we plan promos, how we sell all of those products. So
And
I was.
for anyone who doesn't know, Brian Clark, he founded Copyblogger, and Copyblogger it's all about copywriting and content marketing and sort of building this side of sales, of
Mhm.
marketing, and things that, like, you and I wouldn't naturally be inclined to do. I feel like we're similar in that respect. Like, we're focused on design and development,
Mhm.
not that stuff. So yeah, that is a wonderful education right there.
Yeah. I learned a lot about the importance of content, like how important content is, how important copy is. It was even kind of depressing seeing how little design matters, that like my design was supposed to be only like a background for the copy. But that was also, like that's also a challenge to design, some design a website and that's your design is not like overwhelming, it's not taking, um like it's not the primary thing you see, like design is only in the background and then you support the content that there is on this website. So that was my role. Like I was trying to um, display in a nice and readable way whatever Brian wrote. Like I wouldn't even dare to like change anything in his copy, or like if his title wouldn't be readable or something, I would feel bad. So I wanted to like expose his content in the best possible way. And apparently that was the way of, that was the correct way of designing these things. And when we did some testing, when we tested some of those landing pages and sales pages, not too many design changes had such an impact on conversions as, copy changes. So that was a big lesson to me. And, working with all those people, I also wanted to like understand more, like when I was working on a website for someone like Chris Tucker, and he has his email newsletter and his products, all that stuff. So I wanted to understand like how that works in this whole business, in this whole website. So I started my own newsletter. I wrote my own ebook, started selling this ebook, and the main reason for all of that was in the beginning to get into this and understand better my clients, better understand those people I work with, so I could then I saw like, wow, there's a huge power in having newsletter. So now I
Mhm.
understood like why they want to like expose these newsletters in such a way on their website, and why it's so important to have a prominent call to action with a email opt-in form. So I will start doing the same for my website, for other clients, and everything worked perfectly fine.
Yeah, I mean, you started building your community, which is it's awesome that Copyblogger was a company that was so open. Like they weren't holding you back, trying to stop you from building something sort of because you were leveraging your name a little bit through there, but also you were so prolific in the work you were doing. Then you're able to share. There's a lot that you were able to share that
Yeah.
was very public. So
Yeah,
then,
that was
Mhm.
another reason why I stayed in the company and why I wanted to work for Copyblogger Media, because they were so open, and they have gave me that platform to build my community, to have my own website, to do all this stuff. And I feel like it would be completely different if I was working for a company that wouldn't allow this. I would probably leave much sooner, and
Mhm.
it would be a whole different story. It would be probably as beneficial both for the company and both for me. So yeah.
Yeah. So then, now that you're on your own, it's how long have you been doing this on your own?
So I left over 2 years ago.
Okay, yeah. So then what was it like to get that first sort of post company client?
Yeah, so actually leaving Copyblogger Media 3 years ago was much easier for me, much easier decision for me than when I was quitting my first job. And I was young. I didn't even know what I'm going to do. I didn't have that much money saved, so like everything was I was much more scared back then than I was today. Like I knew I already have my audience. I have over 20,000 email subscribers. I had
Mhm.
some ideas, some plans. I can create products. I have a good client base. I have some connections. I have um, some good community that I can reach out to, and if I need any clients. So I felt pretty secure. Like there's nothing too scary about this. Still, I wasn't sure probably which way to go. If I should go more into creating products for clients, or maybe I should, if I should create websites for clients, or if I should create products for myself, and start which way to go. Like that was, and also a lot of opportunities came out when people found out I left the company. I got, pretty good job offers, like so there was like different kind of problems that I had before. So now I needed to say no to some very, interesting offers. I needed to decide which way to go and stick to that path for a longer time. So yeah, so that was pretty difficult, but finding clients, and going with whatever way I wanted to go was that hard anymore.
Yeah, and most of that seems to be because you established your own community, your own platform. People then recognize your work. I mean, because your design became like the visual identity of these companies. So people would really you can recognize, of course, this isn't like the early days. All of your stuff is different. It's not you're not just changing logos and colors, but you get to sort of over time you've defined your design language. So then I think people start to see like, oh, this is Rafal. This seems or this looks like something Rafal would have done, but maybe someone else sort of swiped the look and feel. Which yeah, I think building that community and recognition based on like your excellent level of work. I think that's something really people can take a lot away
Mhm.
from to see how it's possible to move forward like this.
Yeah, I
Now,
think building your personal brand is so important, because like you're working for the company, you are known for working for the company.
mhm,
But if you are behind this company's brand, where you when you leave, or even if it's your own business and you sell this business, like do you still have your own personal brand strong enough to start something next, and to carry that on to something something in the future. So that was my plan. Like working, while working at Computer Media, I wanted to build my personal brand. So whenever I leave or something happens, I can start something on my own. I have at least some community that I can create some products for. So, and that's also like very exciting to me, because most of my people in my community are also designers. So I know their needs kind of, because most of them are also beginners. So I'm trying to like uh, see that through their eyes, what they need, what I needed like 10 years ago, what I wanted to see, what I wanted to learn. But it's much easier for me to create products for someone who is just like me or was like me 10 years ago than trying to understand markets and clients who are on a completely different level and living in a completely different world. So
yeah, that's smart. What's the split between, so that's education, you're educating other people that are similar to you, other designers, other budding entrepreneurs. What would you say the split is between education and the customer products and your client work?
Yeah, so that was, the balance was different depending on the time. Like when I launched my typography course, obviously then I was focused on that, and a significant portion of my income came from that. Then I wanted to now, so then I went back to my client projects, start working on some client projects, and I'm trying to find this balance. And right now, like still like 95% of my income comes from client projects. Like it's very hard to beat that. And maybe because I, wasn't like fully invested into creating products yet. But like I'm also, going in a way whatever excites me at the moment. So like if I have interesting client, like I was working on a project for Microsoft, like I can't say no, and like like that was very interesting to me. I wanted to dive into that type of project. So yeah, and
How did
whenever
you
I have an
connect?
idea.
How did you connect with Microsoft?
So Microsoft, I got it from through Jason Schuler. Jason.
Mm-hmm.
He was the founder of Press 75 back in the day, WordPress theme shop. So he was working for Microsoft as a contractor. They were looking for a freelance designer. He recommended me as a designer. So that's how I found it, and that also shows the power of your network. Like
Exactly.
you need to have all those connections, and you need to also take care of those connections. Like what I do, at least once a week, I'm trying to reach out to one person from my network, like someone I haven't talked to for years, or I met at one of the conferences, and I message that person either on on Twitter or Instagram, and I ask like how are you doing, what are you working on, and like I have no specific agenda or nothing to sell to you. I'm just checking in, and usually what happens is like, oh, it's good to hear from you. Are you still doing designs? Because maybe we need a design for one of our projects. And like, I was always surprised, like, I'm not even trying to sell you anything. I'm not looking for clients. I'm just, trying to reconnect and like keep some of those connections alive. And what happens, like, usually they're looking for, they like reaching back to me, like, we need a designer. It's good to hear from you. They were like almost expecting me to like offering something, or maybe I'm looking for work or something. But I feel like we all have to take care of our networks, because you never know what opportunity may arise. And that's how I also was the case with Microsoft project. I reached out to Jason at some point. We talked about some stuff, and then I told him like I'm moving. Recreating my solo design studio. I'll be open to some design projects, all of that. And 2-3 months later, he came to me that Microsoft is looking for a designer. So I probably never got it if we never connected on a level like that.
Yeah, that is great advice. I love that, like weekly. So it's sort of like an assignment for yourself. I'm going to check in with someone, no agenda, keep the community, keep the network that you have going. Like that's brilliant. And you're sort of doing that's sort of like building a community through social media, but you're doing it in the one-to-one way that arguably you have a much deeper connection with the people that you're communicating with by doing this. Because if it's just social media posts and you see each other but you don't really connect, like I love that. That's
Yeah,
that's great.
a surprising thing to me was sometimes people message me and like, are you still designing or are you still taking clients? Like people don't even, they don't follow you like um, every day. They don't read everything you write. They don't, see everything you publish. So sometimes people are like out of the loop and then they don't know if you are still designing, you're still taking clients. So it's good to be, if you are offering any services, even if you don't need clients, like that also was one of our mistakes in the beginning. Like I focused on creating products and I stopped taking any clients, and I was like, disconnected from that world. And then people, and I replied to some people like, I'm not taking new clients right now. And that was the message that was sent out to, to some of people in my networks, that I'm not available anymore for any client work. And, I could miss a lot of, good opportunities. So now what I'm doing is, when I'm working on a product, I can work on a product, but still, like I'm open, I'm available, and for anything. If something comes up, I may say I'll be available in 3 months, to work on this. It doesn't mean that I have to drop everything, that I'm working on currently, but just keep just having this message in your network that you are in the game, that you are available. Like that's I feel like it's important.
Oh yeah, it's vital. And I mean that's something that we have sort of failed on that front, like as Spire, like Dave and I. We've at one point sort of stopped taking on clients, and we haven't gotten completely back into that at all. Like we partner with some people and we have some great relationships, but your approach that is the way to go. And sort of in retrospect, I sort of wish we would have done that, just really
Mm-hmm.
to keep that community, the network, the connection going with everyone. In terms of projects, how many would you say you take on a year generally?
I usually have like maybe 10 projects, less than 10, I would say. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this year was when I got back to my solo design studio. And, I started having different kind of relationships with clients, because before it was mostly like one-time projects. But now if there's a client I like working with, so I'm trying to establish like a ongoing retainer.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I have, for example, with Pat Flynn and Fusebugs. I'm working on a regular monthly basis for them, and I love working with them. I hope they like working with me, and that's so I can at least have like a week reserved just for Fusebugs. I don't have to worry about getting new clients that much if I have at least 1 week during the month filled out with a work for client that I like. There's always a risk when you take too many new clients, too many new projects, that you will fall into few projects that you don't like work on, or the clients are not a good fit for you. So if you find someone that you love working with, find a way to continue the relationship and on some sort of at least monthly retainer.
Yeah. How do you negotiate the retainers?
Yeah, so this is usually based on number of hours, and what I do is I offer a lower hourly rate if it's on a monthly. If we said like you need 20 hours a month, then I can offer you, like, my typical hourly rate is $150, but for monthly retainers it could be like 120 or 125, and that's a good deal for clients. It's a lower hourly rate. Also, not every client always use all the hours during the month,
Mm-hmm.
but for them is they at least know I'll be available for that, because that's the hardest part. Like sometimes I had a small project from a client who I worked with before, and I had to schedule that project like 2 months ahead. And
Mm.
that didn't always work for my clients. So I told them, like, you can save 10 hours of my time every month. And if you have small projects like that, I would just jump in and I would have that spot reserved just for you.
Oh, excellent. And do you then log your hours? Is that something that's very transparent, or is it more something where they trust that you're doing the work, you're accomplishing everything and fulfilling sort of the
Yeah,
agreement?
I log my hours just to have it in a record, just in case and someone asks,
Mhm.
like, but I never, and my clients never ask me about like how many hours you spend on this or that. Like, they never ask about that, but I log my hours, and I'm also very flexible. Like sometimes we go over, in 1 month we go 5 hours over the budget, and another
Hmm.
month, because I know that another month maybe there will be 5 hours less than I needed to work on. So I'm trying to also be more flexible, and that's also like building that relationship with the client. I feel is that's what I'm trying to do, like trying to be nice to my clients. And
Oh,
sometimes
absolutely.
sometimes I read some of those freelancers guides, and they say like, oh, you have to, whenever a client pass, like there's a scope creep or something, or they don't pay, they missed the invoice a couple of days, you have to resend a reminder, be all that kind of stuff. Like, that's the opposite of how I work. Like, I'm trying to be very nice, I'm trying to be flexible. They usually, maybe I was lucky I didn't have clients that would take advantage of that. They
Mhm.
usually have some sort of, maybe like feel like they had debt over me, that that I was so nice and I spent a few more hours, so they trying to be then nice to me, and have a easier approval of the project, or they don't have that many comments about the project. So I feel like we're creating this very friendly and nice environment that we both like working in.
Yeah, that's how you build a really strong network. You're giving more than is expected, which is awesome. How do you then decide, so when you're say pitching the person on a retainer, do you outline the things that you think you could do for them on a monthly basis? Do you work with them? Do you ask them what they might need? Like how does that conversation go?
So they usually have a roadmap, like, of stuff they will have, like, for the upcoming, I don't know, 6 months. So we're trying to schedule that, and I take that roadmap, split that into individual tasks, and I say, okay, I can do these and these. We're trying to create a schedule, like which of these tasks can be accomplished, in those particular months. But some, and also leave like five couple hours, just for any unexpected tasks, or stuff that they don't even they can schedule right now, they don't know that may happen. So we also leave that room for unexpected things.
How do you bill them then? Is it a recurring? Is it a like an invoice that send you a check? How do you handle all that?
Yeah, I send a recurring invoice every month. We usually have
Mhm.
like a, that's also much easier for clients, because they usually establish um, like a direct deposit,
Mhm.
every month, so they don't have to worry about opening invoices, sending checks, like doing even that. It's also extra work for some clients, and most of my clients are also solopreneurs. They don't have team, so they handle all the invoices, payments, everything themselves. So if I can make it easier for the client, set up a recurring payment on a credit card or something, that's also much easier for everyone.
Yeah, what do you use for your recurring payments? Is it a WordPress plugin or something else?
So I use Harvest app for all the
Okay.
invoices, and that's
Hmm.
connected with Stripe and PayPal. So,
Oh,
and with
perfect.
Stripe, you can create recurring payments.
Yeah. Yeah. So then on your end too, it's not a lot of extra work. You set it up, it's going through the software and it handles it all for you. That's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
good.
and the when you have a new client, like, there's at least in my case, like 2-3 hours upfront work, not unpaid work, that you have to do to even get this client, and you don't even know if you're going to work with him or her, and if you have already recurring client on a monthly basis, like, you don't have to worry about scoping that project that much. You don't have to worry about trying to sell it to the client, convincing, like, doing all those extra work that we do when we have new clients, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's easier to sell to someone you've already sold to. You've built up that rapport. Um, with everything that happened with COVID, did you have to dial back at all with retainers, like people who were already in, or has it stayed pretty stable?
It stayed pretty stable. I would say there were a few changes, weren't that much affected by what's happening. It
Mhm.
was I feel like maybe there will be a difference maybe next year, when some of those companies when they see losses this year, and maybe they will have a different budget for the next year. So
Mhm.
it may come to us with a delay. I don't know what's going to happen,
Yeah.
how quickly the economy will rebound from all of this. But like in my work, I had a few clients that we had scheduled projects they canceled because it's not like nothing serious happened. They just also weren't sure about the future, so they just wanted to wait maybe for a better moment to redesign the website. So there was a few things like that, but nothing really major changed in my business.
Hmm. And how do you then choose your rate and your pricing? How do you decide based on the work that you're doing? Because I'm sure you don't only do hourly. It's probably like hourly is how you calibrate it. But then how did you choose that base rate?
Yeah, so most of my projects I quote per project. I don't, like trying to estimate a number of hours or anything like that.
Mhm.
Like that, I have pretty fixed project rates, and I even tweeted that, so it's not a secret. So like I tweeted that for about personal websites. That for personal website, I charge my project started at $10,000 just for design, and
Mhm.
if it's design plus development, it's charged at $20,000. It's different for business sites, but my pricing, I'm trying to match it to the needs. Like I can't imagine anyone who's doing a personal website and I had this experience working with different clients. Even if someone is a popular and has books, and like you feel like, oh, that's a rich person, I can charge him whatever I want for a website. But they also they know they're very smart, and they can reach out to most of design studios and agencies that will be happy to do this for them for half the price, just to have them in their portfolio. So it's very hard to even quote those famous people
Mhm.
for a big number, for a huge number, for the project. So, and I also know that personal projects are not that important. So I'm trying to like even hook people into. I design them a personal website. They are happy with it, and most of them have businesses. So now, if they want to have me design a website for their business, that's a different story, because their business is making a lot more money. They have also a different budget to spend on a business website. It's something they think in a completely different way than about their personal websites.
Yeah, I mean that's a great hook. I mean you build that rapport, you get them in, and then like it's like an ethical upsell. You're giving them like, hey, this is the product. If you love it, I can also do this. Like that's I really like that a
Yeah, I
lot.
feel
Do you?
like I also love building these relationships. When you design a personal website for someone, you have that personal relationship with that person, because you ask them all the questions. They are personally involved in this project more than probably they are involved in the company's project. Where I had a case where I was working on someone's personal website, and I had that person personally involved. But when we're designing his business website, then I was talking to his managers and like marketing, chief marketing officers, and other people who were just doing this for the business. So you know I feel like, yeah, it's getting through personal websites, so you can get through those people, and then building that relationships, and slowly getting into more serious and bigger projects. That's the way I structure my business right now.
Yeah, and then what kind of questions do you ask to your clients to figure out what they want?
Yeah, so I'm trying to find out like what's their goal in the beginning. Like so many clients come and they already have like plan in their head. I want to have website with this and this and this. So I'm trying to get to the bottom of this. Like why do you need this? And then the whole conversation starts, because some people say, oh, I want to have this call to action. I want to sell my product, have my call to action for a product on a homepage. And I say, why? And he said, oh, here's another person. He's doing the same thing as me, and he has his product on a homepage. But I'm asking, like, you know, but do you know how well that converts, or like, is it even working? Just because someone else is doing this doesn't mean it's working. And and I'm going into this why questions, and then we find out like how you sell even your product. And then we find out that he sells through some of those free products through his email newsletter. And we may figure out that we don't need to put your product on the homepage. You need to put your email newsletter on the homepage with a free incentive, and that's how we get to your product. So some of those and I'm also trying to tell my clients, like, don't tell me what to do. Tell me what you want to achieve, and we will figure this out how we can achieve that. Because that's could be some. That's why you're hiring me, to help you achieve
Exactly.
your goals, not to recreate whatever you were thinking of.
Yeah, I mean, deferring to you for your expertise. I mean, you have a vast amount of knowledge in doing this. And that is the great way, because it sounds like you're educating like your clients. Your clients already have an idea coming in, like who you are and how much you know, but then you also make sure that you educate them on like, no, this is what I'm here to do, and I will satisfy that for you. Yeah, this has been great. This has been a great conversation. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I just wanted to, for someone who's just starting out, because you recently then you've sort of restarted. You did have the audience, but someone who's starting from like the ground floor today, what kind of advice would you give them for maybe building that community, building that network, and getting their first client?
Yeah, I feel like starting your personal website is very important. Starting your newsletter, writing about what you do, starting a blog, sharing everything you also learn and what you are working on. And if you are a designer and you don't have, that's also the most common question to me. Like, I'm a designer, I don't have a huge portfolio. How do I get through there? And you can you can come up with projects like either your own side projects, personal projects. Like, I created Typespiration back in the day that you helped me with the name. You came up to the name.
Mm-hmm.
I probably owe you a lot of money one day
No, no.
if I but that was one of the side projects I came up with, and it became very popular. I got a lot of even clients, people coming through this project, and a lot of people like joined my community, joined my newsletter, a lot of designers. And that was, so I feel like there's a lot of chances. What you can do, you can create, a fake company's website design, like a template, and put it out there. Pretend it's a company that you designed for. You don't have to, explain who is it and who is it for. Just, you can just one of the case studies, just to show your skills and show what you can do. And, you have to hustle a little bit too. Like this, I know that our designers like, oh, I'm embarrassed to, promote myself. I'm embarrassed to like saying I'm available, like looking I'm desperate or something. Like, this is your business. You have to be desperate. You have to, like want to have that work. If clients, that's what, like a lot of my clients, when I work with my clients, I'm trying to show them that I'm very excited working with them. Like, I'm like, their project is the most important thing to me right now, and there's nothing else that matters. And I'm super excited working with you. I'm super excited on this project. Like, if I'm not, then I'm not taking this project at all. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And one last question then, with your side projects, so Typespiration and the other side projects you've done, have you tried to monetize those, or are they purely ways to drive more business to your design agency?
yeah, so Typespiration has a potential to be monetized, and I had some ideas. I stopped growing Typespiration for a while, but I feel like if I went back to it and start putting more designs, and I could easily monetize it in some ways. But some of my other side projects, I call them side projects, but even like my ebook was doing pretty well when I published it. It was it had two functions. Like, it drove me some of those new members of my community, some new subscribers. But also, every time you publish something, like even an ebook for designers, my name got out there somewhere, and I got so many podcast interviews. I got so many questions about the ebook, and like established even me as an authority in this field, that I also got more clients. So whatever you do, like even if you're creating products for not specifically for your clients, it can actually bring you a lot of clients too.
Yeah. I mean, it really comes down to showing your work. I mean, getting out there. And I think as designers, as artists, it can be scary. Like you said,
Yeah.
we never think what we're doing is good enough, but there's people everywhere on their journey at any point in their journey that even if someone's just starting out, they are going to be an inspiration for someone else who's earlier in their knowledge, in their education. But yeah, this has been a great conversation. Thanks for doing this again. And where should we send people to follow along with everything that you're up to?
Yeah, the best place is to go to my website, rafaltomal.com. You can subscribe to my newsletter. And I'm actually restarting my newsletter soon because it was on a pause for a while, but I'm restarting it. And if you subscribe, every week I send one thing that you can learn. So it's like an article, design tip, or something, a thought or an idea, one thing that you can see. So I show something from my behind the scenes of my work, some of my projects, some of my process. And there is one thing to get inspired. So then I show something that inspired me, some interesting project or design of someone else's. And that's probably the best way to get everything that I'm up to every week.
Excellent. Well, yeah, thanks again. And I'm really glad we got to have this conversation. I think people are going to get a lot out of it. And we will talk again soon.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
See ya. Well, that was a great conversation. I want to thank Rafal for chatting today, and be sure to visit Rafal Tomal to see everything that he's up to and to subscribe to his email newsletter. You'll find those links in the show notes. As always, this episode of Starting Now is brought to you by BYLT. At BYLT, we help you get started online. Whether you want to start a blog or a business, head on over to BYLT.co. That's BYLT.co to get started. BYLT, your website, built for you, simply. Finally, if you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Also, be sure to check out the video version of this show on YouTube. You'll find all the links for this episode at BYLT.co/004. That's BYLT.co/004. Well, that'll do it for this week. Again, I'm Jeff Sarris, and no matter where you are in your entrepreneurial journey, I hope this episode serves as a little kick in the pants to get started now. See you next week.